The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 113. This is the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome back. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Even though it's early June and the start of the season is some 12 weeks away, it's never too early to talk Michigan and college football. Joining us to do that today on our Michigan Insider segment is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN and The Big blog. Before we get to that though, let's kick it off as we always do with our View from Section 17, which is a look at news of interest to Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Michigan's 2013 football recruiting class picked up another 2 gems in the past week. On Friday, Westwood Zavarian Brothers defensive tackle Maurice Hurst committed. Then on Monday, Baltimore Gilman defensive tackle Henry Pogge gave his verbal. Both players are rated 4 stars by the major recruiting services. In other news, senior safety Jordan Kovacs and basketball's Courtney Boylan were recently named Big Ten Sportsmanship of the Year winners in their respective sports. And last week, the Big Ten announced the names of the 2011-2012 academic all-conference student athletes. 89 Wolverines from 12 sports were accorded those high honors. We'll have more on these stories coming up on Wolverine Quick Hits later in the show. But coming up next, we'll be joined by ESPN's Adam Rittenberg to talk not only Michigan football, but college football in general. So please stick around for that, right here on the Michigan Man Podcast, on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our Michigan Insider segment this week is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN.com and the Big blog. Adam, thanks for taking time to talk to us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike.
It's early June, Adam. As we know, we're about 4 or 5 weeks away from a lot of the hype for the upcoming season. Right now, the hot topic seems to be the proposed playoff system for college football, which, of course, not only involves the Big Ten, but everyone. Can you bring us up to speed on where we are in the process, as I'm sure you're following it a lot more closely than a lot of us?
Sure. Well, it's a big month, Mike. June, several key meetings taking place nationally and also meetings taking place with conferences individually. So, there's most of the conferences have had their spring meetings of coaches and athletic directors and sometimes presidents. And so each conference is trying to figure out what it wants and what should be the best course of action going forward. Seems pretty clear we're going to have a true 14 playoff, and I'd be really surprised if that playoff didn't, at least the semifinals, weren't included into the existing bowl structure. So you might have a situation where the top 4 BCS bowls are used, 2 are used one year and 2 are used the next year, and the championship game most likely will be bid out independently, either to bowl sites or to other venues, like maybe even in the Midwest, like Ford Field in Detroit. So there's that's kind of where we're at right now. I know the big topic has been how to determine the 4 teams, and that's going to be a big question going forward. The SEC has come out with an official position wanting the quote-unquote best 4 teams in whatever rankings are at the end of the season. Some other conferences want there to be a stronger access for league champions like the Big Ten, but there's still a lot of discussion and certainly a few more very, very important meetings coming up in the next few weeks.
Adam, a part of that discussion I was noticing in a couple of stories this past weekend was that the Big Ten wants to preserve the Rose Bowl in any playoff system. Is that realistic?
Well, I think by preserve the Rose Bowl, I think the Big Ten is realistic that it will be part of a system. It won't be, I don't think it will be in the system every year. So, Big Ten Commissioner Jim Delaney has said this multiple times in recent weeks that when you see the final model, you will see the flexibility the Rose Bowl has had. And to me, that says, the Rose Bowl is not going to be in the playoff every year. I think it's reasonable to think that the Rose Bowl will be a semifinal every other year, but I think you're going to see some sort of rotation of existing bowl sites that would serve as semifinal hosts, and then you have the national championship game bid out. I don't believe the Rose Bowl will bid on the national title game. I think it wants to have its traditional game as much as possible, be a part of the playoff as much as possible, but it's also realistic that in this environment, what it was in the past is probably not going to be what it is in the future.
Yeah, and I think in the next couple of weeks or a month or so, we'll see a lot of development and a lot of talk about that. It'll be interesting. Let's talk about the conference as a whole right now, though, Adam. For what seems like, better than a decade, even longer, the Big Ten has seemed to take a beating in the national media. Not seem to, we have, for our non-conference record and our bowl records. Do you think that's justified, or is it getting overblown?
Well, again, the way that the national discussion is framed now, like in the BCS era, is that everything is dependent on the national championship game. So if you're not winning national championships, it doesn't really matter what else you do. So if you look closer at the Big Ten's overall performance in bowls, which hasn't been great, but it hasn't been awful necessarily, and even the Big Ten's matchups with the SEC, which has been the nation's dominant conference, in overall games hasn't been that bad. But the bottom line is the Big Ten's won only one national title in the BCS era. We're going on a decade now without a national title, and the SEC's won 6 in a row. So when you take that all into the framework of if you're not winning national titles, you don't really matter, that's why the Big Ten is getting such a beating in the national media. So in that sense, every league is judged the same way right now, national titles or not. I think it is justified.
Well, Adam, with all the conference has in its favor, the great tradition, the great game day environments, a highly profitable Big Ten network, and a great market, why do you think the conference has struggled from top to bottom to gain parity with some of the outside competition from the SEC and the Pac-10?
Well, again, I think the struggles are at the top of the conference. The Big Ten is having trouble matching up with the SEC, certainly, and even the Big 12 at the very top. The Big Ten's best just simply aren't beating the SEC's best and the Big 12's best on a regular basis. And, there's a number of explanations, recruiting and the way recruiting has changed over the last 10 years with population shifts. It does really seem, I know Big Ten fans hate to hear this, but there are more elite recruits outside of the Big Ten territory now than maybe there were 10, 15, certainly 20 years ago. So that plays a part in it because those teams located closer to those recruits are doing very, very well in terms of getting them. I also think there's a coaching edge potentially, especially in a league like the SEC where they've just committed just a ridiculous amount of money to coaches and to assistant coaches. I think the Big Ten is slowly catching up there. You look at what Michigan has done as far as committing to its 2 coordinators. Ohio State has made a much stronger financial commitment to not only its head coach but to its assistant coaches under Urban Meyer. And I think that's going to be important to the Big Ten going forward because, as you mentioned, from a revenue standpoint, the Big Ten is still the number 1 revenue-generating league in the country, and I believe that's going to continue. So now you have to put more of that revenue back into those football programs if you want to expect to keep up with the SEC and the Big 12.
Adam, the conference is coming off another, not great bowl performance last year. And looking ahead to this fall, to this upcoming season, do you think overall this is going to be a more competitive Big Ten?
Well, it's a good question. Again, I don't see a bona fide national championship contender in this conference entering the year. You have some good teams and potentially some very good teams in Michigan, Michigan State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, but all those teams have flaws that I think will prevent them, or even scheduling issues like Michigan, that will prevent them from getting to that national championship level. So I do think the league overall could have more depth. I thought it would have more depth last year. Didn't really pan out that way when the bowls rolled around, but I think the middle of the conference, closer to the top of the conference, you could have some pretty good teams, and if they're matched up in some favorable bowl matchups, you could have a better record. But I'd be surprised if the Big Ten is competing for a national championship this year.
Our guest on our Michigan Insider segment today is Adam Rittenberg from ESPN.com and the Big Ten blog. Adam, a question on the Buckeyes. At this time last year, I think many of us thought, I think you and I talked about this last June, we thought maybe the hammer was going to fall on the Ohio State program, or at least the sanctions were going to be tougher. And I'm sure Buckeye fans think the hammer did fall. But other than, the vacated wins, the losses of scholarships, and a one-year bowl ban, how really has that program been set back?
I don't think it's been set back much at all. I think the big surprise of those penalties was the bowl ban. Ohio State officials had maintained all along that they didn't believe that they were going to receive one, that they didn't deserve one, given the nature of the violations, and the bowl ban really came as a surprise. I think if you look back at their case, the fact that they had a second wave of investigation into a former booster, paying players for work not performed and things like that, it's not a huge shock that they received a one-year ban. But in the grand scheme of things, are they going to be set back, dramatically? I don't think so. And the big reason why, of course, is the timing of having being able to get a coach like Urban Meyer after what happened with Jim Tressel and going through a year with Luke Fickell. So, I really can't imagine a better situation timing-wise for Ohio State to emerge from a really tough situation with an elite head coach, one of the nation's best recruiters, and like I said, making a greater commitment to the staff. You're seeing Ohio State recruited at a high level. So I don't imagine Ohio State being out of the national mix very long. Obviously, they're not going to be in it this year, but I think there's a strong hope among Ohio State fans, and a realistic hope, quite frankly, if they're going to be in that mix in 2013.
There was some ill will generated by Commissioner Delaney, not campaigning, but sort of interceding on Ohio State's behalf during the NCAA investigation. It seemed like some of the ADs and some coaches in the conference were not happy that Commissioner Delaney stepped up lobbying for Ohio State. Do you see any long-term negative impacts from that?
I don't think so. I really haven't heard a whole lot of that lingering now. I mean, I think if Commissioner Delaney knew what we knew a few months later about Jim Tressel and his withholding information and quite frankly just lying about what he knew and didn't know, there's no way Commissioner Delaney would have tried to lobby for Ohio State to be in that game. So I guess I haven't heard a whole lot of that lingering. I think most coaches are focused on the future, and certainly the playoff talk is something that they're interested in, and bowl alignments and things like that. So I don't foresee that being an issue coming up unless we have a similar situation involving another school and a major bowl game like we had with Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl.
Well, if we could switch gears for just a minute, Adam, and talk about our Michigan Wolverines and Coach Brady Hoke. Of course, we're coming off an 11-2 season. I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be that way again this year. But what kind of a chance do you think the Wolverines have to come close to replicating that 11-2 season, given that the schedule, especially the road schedule, is much tougher?
Yeah, and that's really the point, Mike, and I'm sure you talked about this and thought about this, that Michigan most likely will be a better team in 2012 than they were in 2011, but their schedule is just so much harder that they could easily be a better team with a worse record. A lot went right for Michigan last year. They played a lot of good teams, very few great teams, but they took care of business, and they deserve credit for that, and they really took a step forward towards becoming, a consistent, top-tier Big Ten, maybe top-tier national program under Brady Hoke and his staff. So that can't be taken away. I just think it's going to be tough with the number of road games, and I really include that Alabama game in many ways as a road game for Michigan to get back to 11 wins. But I think Michigan has as good a chance as any to win its division, get to the Big Ten championship game and win a Big Ten championship, for the first time, outright since 2004. And that's obviously a big goal for Brady Hoke. He called last year a failure because they didn't win the Big Ten title. So if they're able to get to that point this year, I think Michigan fans can feel very, very good about the direction of the program.
It's awfully early, but if we could just take a quick look at both divisions and how you see it, given that we're a couple of months away from the season, who do you see as the leader in the Legends division right now?
Well, the Legends division to me is the more interesting division. It's a tougher division. You have three teams there in Michigan, Michigan State, and Nebraska that I really could see any of those three winning that division. All three have strong points. Michigan returns a lot on offense. The secondary looks very good, but they have to replace some outstanding linemen on both sides of the ball. Michigan State has what I believe is the single best unit in the conference, which is their defense, which just should be outstanding, probably a top 5, top 10 unit again. but on the flip side, they lose a lot on the offensive side. Nebraska brings back a lot on offense, but they have questions at quarterback and have to replace some star power on defense. So I'm really interested to see which of those three teams emerges. And, it's interesting. Each of them has one home game and one road game against one of the other teams in that three-team pod. So I think the team that can win on the road, for Michigan, that would be going to Nebraska. For Michigan State, that would be going to the Big House. And for Nebraska, that would be going up to East Lansing. I think the team that can win on the road in that little mix of three teams has a really good chance to get to Indianapolis.
How about over in the Leaders Division?
The Leaders Division is a little bit more obvious, at least entering the year, because of Ohio State's situation. I think anyone looking at that division has to put Wisconsin as the favorite. The fact is they've made the last two Rose Bowls. They returned some very, very good players, led by Heisman Trophy candidate Monty Ball, running back, the senior. Also have an outstanding tandem at linebacker in Chris Borland and Mike Taylor. The big question for them, obviously, is a quarterback. Losing first-team All-Big Ten quarterback Russell Wilson, who was just outstanding in his only year in Madison. Now they have another transfer coming in from Maryland, Danny O'Brien. I don't think anyone expects him to be Russell Wilson, but if he can just be a serviceable, solid Big Ten quarterback and stay on the field, there really is little to believe that Wisconsin won't be back in that mix to get to Indianapolis. Ohio State not eligible. Penn State has a new coach. Illinois has a new coach. Purdue could be a surprise team. They're interesting. They return 18 starters. Indiana obviously coming off a 1-11 season. So Wisconsin's clearly the team to beat, but I wouldn't be stunned either if we see someone else in that division end up in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game.
Well, it's going to be exciting. It's our second year of divisional play coming up. Of course, last year was the first Big Ten championship game. Along with being a great game, it was a ratings and a financial success. Do you see the Big Ten championship game as being one that eventually is going to rival the SEC championship game?
Well, Mike, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that it's all about the national championship. So if that game has no bearing on the playoffs or who's going to go to the national championship, it's going to be very hard to rival the SEC's championship game, because that game, as we've seen for the past 6 years, does have bearing on the national championship. So that's really the key going forward. So this year, maybe we'll see a Big Ten team in that game that has a chance to compete for the national championship and go on to Miami. But I think more than likely we're looking at next year, and certainly after the playoff starts, for that game to increase in importance, because then then you're competing for a spot in the national semifinal, which everyone's going to watch. It's going to be a huge deal, versus just a game, competing for the right to go to the Rose Bowl, which is a great deal in Big Ten territory, but it doesn't have the same type of impact nationally. So it's all about having incentive in that game to reach that national championship level and be in that mix.
Well, we're not far away, just about 7 or 8 weeks from camp opening up, so it's looking to be an exciting season in the conference, and of course with the second Big Ten championship game, a lot to look forward to. Our guest today has been Adam Rittenberg from ESPN.com and the Big Ten blog. Adam, we look forward to having you back on the show as we get a bit closer to the season.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks again to our guest today, ESPN's Adam Rittenberg, who also authors the Big Ten blog on ESPN.com, so check it out at www.espn.com. Coming up next is Wolverine Quick Hits, right here on the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, Baltimore, Maryland Gilman defensive tackle Henry Pogge verbally committed to Michigan recently and revealed to GoBlueWolverine.com last weekend why the Wolverines were the victors over Alabama, Ohio State, and a host of other BCS powers. The four-star prospect is commitment number 20 in Michigan's stellar 2013 class. One of those commitments, Westwood, Massachusetts Zavarian Brothers defensive tackle Maurice Hurst, became public Saturday. News of the other began leaking out shortly thereafter. I really do think that it was this week that I really knew, Baltimore, Maryland Gilman star Henry Pogge told Go Blue Wolverine Saturday evening. I took a visit to Alabama a few weeks ago, and then after that visit, I was just weighing the pros and cons. Then from there, I made my decision. It was definitely very close between Michigan and Alabama, but I'm 100% for Michigan. The first reason I decided to go to Michigan is because of the academics. I understand that football is going to be a very small percentage of my life. I want a degree that can carry a lot of weight, and I know a Michigan degree can do that. So congratulations to the number 19 and number 20 commitments, Henry Pogge and Maurice Hurst. Another 4 or 5 slots still open for Coach Hoke as he puts together his second fantastic recruiting class. In other news, the Big Ten Conference announced the 24 Sportsmanship Award winners for the 2011-12 academic year last Wednesday, honoring a male and female athlete from each of the 12 members. University of Michigan football senior safety Jordan Kovacs and women's basketball senior guard Courtney Boylan were named the Wolverine Sportsmanship Award winners. In addition, one student athlete from each varsity program was also recognized by exemplifying the principles of good sportsmanship through their conduct during and after competition. So congratulations again to basketball's Courtney Boylan and football's Jordan Kovacs. The Big Ten Conference office also announced the 2012 Spring Academic All-Big Ten team last Thursday. 89 University of Michigan student athletes representing 12 varsity teams were named to the academic squad. To be eligible for the distinction, student athletes must be letter winners in at least their second academic year at their institution and carry a cumulative grade point average of 3.0 or higher. The NCAA runner-up women's rowing team placed 17 student athletes on the academic squad, including 4 who were members of U of M's 2012 national champion second varsity 8-boat. Senior Paige Heel, junior Chrissy Holm, Emily Idoni, and senior Ariel Piotr. Senior Felice Mueller, the 2012 Big Ten Athlete of the Year in rowing, earned her 3rd Academic All-Big Ten award. 6 members of U of M's Big Ten champion softball team earned Academic All-Big Ten recognition. Leading the contingent was senior first baseman Amanda Chittister from right here in Allen Park, Michigan, St. Francis Cabrini High School, the 2011 and 2012 Big Ten Player of the Year. Senior center fielder Bree Evans, a 2012 All-Big Ten second team selection, earned her 2nd conference academic honor, while fellow second team selection, sophomore outfielder Nicole Sappingfield, earned her 1st in her first year of eligibility. Senior forward Luke Glendenning was among 6 members of the hockey team to earn academic All-Big Ten honors. Glendenning, the CCHA's 2012 Best Defensive Forward, majored in political science and was a 2-time team captain for the Wolverines. So congratulations to all 89 University of Michigan student athletes receiving the academic All-Big Ten Award honors. Don't forget to become a member here at GBMW. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership. Benefits include daily email reminders when a story is published or a mailbag question is answered. You also need to become a member for full participation on our always interesting message board. As a member here on GBMW, you can also take part in our popular Monday Night Live chat with E-Rock Wolverine, Coach BT, Maze Man, Doc for Blue, World's Wolverine, and our hockey guru Yoastmeister. The Monday Night Live chat is taking a summer vacation, but will return in August when fall practice begins. So join GBMW today and get your daily Maize and Blue fix of news and conversation. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for membership today. Then each Wednesday you can listen to the Michigan Man Podcast. The show is now available as an Android app, which can be purchased from the Android App Store at Amazon.com. If you are an Apple person, you will find our app in the iTunes App Store. If you listen to the show on your Apple device, please take a minute to give the show a review. It really does help us a lot. Our listener lines are open 24/7. If you would like to call and leave a comment we can use on an upcoming show. Our number is 313-263-4842. Whatever's on your mind, football, basketball, recruiting, hockey, just give us a call, state your name, where you're calling from, and then let it rip. If you would rather not leave a voicemail but still have a comment or suggestion for the show, just email us at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. I welcome your thoughts and opinions on anything maize and blue. Thanks again to our guest today, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN and the Big Ten blog. You can check Adam out at www.espn.com and then look for the Big Ten blog. Don't forget that we're on our summer broadcast schedule of 2 shows a month until August, so we're not going away, just slowing down to enjoy a bit of the summer. Weekly programming will resume in August as we get ramped up for the coming football season. Our next show will be coming up on Wednesday, June 20th. So in the midst of your busy summer schedule, don't forget to download the show and take us with you on your summer travels. Thanks again to all of our listeners around the country, and especially to our servicemen and women in Afghanistan who listen to the show via the Armed Forces Internet service. We appreciate the kind words that you send to us and are pleased to be able to bring you news of your Wolverines wherever you are. Don't forget to tell your friends about the show, and again, if you get the show from iTunes, please give us a review. We'll be back with our next show again on June 20th. Until then, I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue.